6 in the morning, a hotel in Zurich. Plainclothes cops walk in and start arresting some of the most powerful men in world soccer. Bed sheets pulled over their faces in a 5-star hotel lobby. And this wasn't a Swiss sting. This was the FBI. The sport the rest of the world calls football, the most watched sport on the planet, had been running a bribe machine for over 20 years. Referees, executives, TV deals, World Cup votes, all of it bought and sold like commodities on a street corner. And the number that came out of the U.S. Department of Justice, over $150 million in bribes and kickbacks, allegedly funneled through shell companies, offshore bank accounts, and wire transfers that crossed through American banks, which is exactly how the FBI got involved. This is the story of the biggest fraud in football history, and it starts with one man who was secretly feeding information to the feds for years. His name was Chuck Blazer. Now, if you don't know Chuck Blazer, picture this: a guy from New York, big personality, bigger appetite, somehow ends up as one of the most powerful figures in global soccer. He was the General Secretary of CONCACAF, that's the governing body for soccer in North and Central America and the Caribbean. He also sat on FIFA's Executive Committee. FIFA, the organization that controls soccer for the entire planet. Blazer loved the lifestyle that came with it. He reportedly rented 2 apartments at Trump Tower in New York, one to live in, one for his cats. He billed expenses to CONCACAF like it was his personal credit card. Millions in undisclosed income, 0 federal tax returns filed for years. And here's where it gets interesting. The IRS found him first. Federal agents approached Blazer around 2011. They had him on tax evasion, and rather than go down alone, he flipped. He became an FBI informant. For years, while still attending FIFA events, still sitting in boardrooms, he was recording conversations, wearing a wire, gathering evidence. This part still blows my mind. The man helped build the corrupt system and then wore a wire inside it. By the time the DOJ was ready to move, they had built one of the most sprawling sports corruption cases in American legal history. May 27, 2015, Zurich, Switzerland. FIFA officials had gathered for their annual Congress, the big yearly meeting where soccer's most powerful figures shake hands and talk about the beautiful game. Swiss authorities, acting on a U.S. request, raided the Bauer Olac Hotel before sunrise and arrested 7 FIFA officials. The charges? Racketeering, wire fraud, money laundering conspiracy. The DOJ indictment named 14 individuals and 2 sports media and marketing companies, and prosecutors laid it all out. From roughly 1991 through 2015, more than 2 decades, officials allegedly accepted bribes in exchange for awarding lucrative media and marketing rights for major soccer tournaments, the Copa America, the Gold Cup, World Cup qualifiers. Broadcast rights deals worth hundreds of millions of dollars. And according to the DOJ, executives were getting secret cuts off the top, wired into offshore accounts in places like the Cayman Islands, the Bahamas, and Switzerland. The money moved through American banks. That's the key detail. Wire transfers hit American financial institutions, which put it squarely under U.S. federal jurisdiction. The FBI didn't need a stadium in New Jersey to make this case. They needed a wire transfer passing through New York, and they had dozens of them. Now here's where the story really escalates. Just days after those first arrests in Zurich, the Swiss Attorney General opened a separate criminal investigation. This one focused on how the 2018 and 2022 World Cup hosting rights were awarded. Russia got 2018, Qatar got 2022, and a lot of people had a lot of questions about how those decisions were made. FIFA's own internal investigator, American attorney Michael Garcia, had already submitted a 430-page report on the bidding process. FIFA's appeals committee released a summary. Garcia publicly said the summary misrepresented his findings. He resigned in protest. That report was never fully released to the public. Think about that for a second. The organization investigating itself buried its own investigators' findings. Meanwhile, FIFA's longtime president, Sepp Blatter, who had run the organization since 1998, initially survived the initial wave of arrests. He was re-elected as FIFA president just days after those Zurich hotel raids. But it didn't last. In September 2015, Swiss authorities announced they had opened a criminal investigation into Blatter himself over a suspicious payment, reportedly around $2 million, made to UEFA president Michel Platini. Blatter denied wrongdoing. Platini denied wrongdoing. Both were eventually banned from soccer by FIFA's own ethics committee. By December 2015, the DOJ had unsealed a second wave of indictments. Now, the total number of charged individuals had grown to over 40 people. More marketing executives, more federation officials, more wire fraud, more shell companies. The scheme had tentacles into South America through CONMEBOL, the South American Soccer Federation, and back into the Caribbean and North America through CONCACAF. Prosecutors described it as a culture of corruption that had become normalized. Not a one-time scandal, not a rogue actor, a system, a way of doing business that stretched across continents and decades. And the guilty pleas started rolling in. Chuck Blazer himself pled guilty back in 2013, before any of this became public, to racketeering conspiracy, wire fraud, money laundering, tax evasion, and failing to file reports on foreign bank accounts. 10 counts total. He cooperated fully. He died in 2017 before he was ever sentenced. Other officials began pleading guilty one by one. José Hawila, a Brazilian sports marketing mogul, pled guilty and agreed to forfeit over $150 million. Jeffrey Webb, who had actually replaced Blazer as CONCACAF president and had publicly pledged to clean up the organization, was arrested in those Zurich raids. He eventually pled guilty to racketeering and other charges. The scale of it is genuinely hard to wrap your head around. This wasn't a couple of guys skimming off the top. This was a coordinated, multinational bribery and fraud operation embedded inside the governing structure of the world's most popular sport. And it ran, allegedly, for over 20 years before American federal prosecutors unraveled it. Now, what happened to FIFA itself? The organization paid a fine of over $150 million to the U.S. government as part of a deferred prosecution agreement. It agreed to internal reforms, independent compliance monitoring, and cooperated with the ongoing investigation. Sepp Blatter's ban from soccer was eventually reduced. He attempted a legal comeback. Swiss criminal proceedings against him dragged on for years. As of the time this script was written, Blatter had not been criminally convicted in Switzerland, though proceedings had continued through multiple stages. The 2026 World Cup? It's being hosted by the United States, Canada, and Mexico, awarded in a process FIFA insisted was clean under its reform structure. Whether you believe that is up to you. And here's the detail that I think about more than any other in this whole story. Chuck Blazer, the man who helped corrupt the system, then secretly recorded it for the FBI, reportedly had a motorized scooter he rode around FIFA events in his later years. He was recognizable, beloved even in some circles, all while he was gathering evidence that would eventually bring down dozens of the most powerful people in global sports. Nobody suspected a thing. The whole machine ran in plain sight, luxury hotels, handshakes, boardrooms, for over 20 years, and it took an American tax investigation to finally pull the thread. If you want to see what happens when a financial fraud hides inside a charity for decades and ruins thousands of lives,